Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be giving you a big update. I'll be telling you everything you need to know about the tropics, future forecasts in terms of temperatures and precipitation for the US, and a little bit of winter talk and fall talk at the end of the video. So let's get right into it. So starting out with the National Weather Service alerts, nothing really up for today except on the west coast you do see a abundance of heat advisories, excessive heat warnings mainly being down here in the desert southwest, and heat advisories over here in the Pacific Northwest, as well as heat advisories lining the western coast of California. And then some dense fog advisories and flood watches and warnings actually up for areas of the coastal deep south, the Gulf Coast down here. So relatively quiet, however, there are some alerts to be taken note of. Now, starting out, or really getting into our severe weather outlook, starting with day 1, we just have a very tiny marginal risk today over here in Arizona. Wind was a 5%, and hail was 5%, so nothing too crazy. Day 2 looks a little more widespread-ish. Wind is just 5%, and hail is just 5%, so again, just look out for your typical spring storms with some severity possible. And then day 3, just some general risks. And then going from day 4 through 8, here we see that nothing really predicted. So overall, very, very quiet, severe outlook. Now getting into the tropics. So starting out with the Eastern Pacific. Yesterday we didn't have anything notable, but we do have this one area right here. 0% in the next 48 hours, 30% in the next 7 days. As this is generally supposed to go around northwest. And we'll see. Okay, 0% in the next 48 hours, but 30% in the next 7 days. Usually when you have those similar percentages, you see slow development, and maybe even a tropical depression or storm by the time it gets in this general area. Still a big question mark, but something to watch over the next few weeks or few days. Now getting into the Atlantic, and much more active. So let's start out with disturbance. Let's find disturbance 1 over here. Or here, let's start out with disturbance 5. So this 0% in the next 48 hours, 0% in the next 7 days. You might say why there isn't any like yellow zoned outlined out here, because again 0%. So this thing is likely just gonna fade out and pop off of your screen by tomorrow. So nothing to worry about there. Maybe some choppy weather over here in the greater or lesser Antilles, but nothing much. Behind it, though, disturbance 4, 0% in the next 48 hours, 10% in the next 7 days. So again, could develop, might not, something to watch, but nothing of concern as for now as it continues heading generally westward. We also have disturbance 1 off the Gulf Coast, 10% in the next 48 hours, 10% in the next 7 days. So as long as it stays off coast, it has a possibility, but I mean, percentages have been lowered, so this is something that can also likely just bringing some rough seas, but nothing other than that. Disturbance 2, however, 30% in the next 48 hours, 30% in the next 7 days. This one has the highest chance, I'd say. This one is looking pretty good right now, and some models does have actually becoming a weak extratropical or subtropical looking low, as it again here heads east or northeastward, kind of like in that direction. So impacts maybe to the Nova Scotia coastlines, and especially possibly for areas of extreme eastern Newfoundland. So something to watch out for as it continues heading northeast. And then disturbance 3 over here, 0% in the next 48 hours, 20% in the next 7 days. The second most important system to watch as it goes into the Bay of Campeche and possibly develops into something worthy of watching. But I'd say disturbance 3 and disturbance 2 are the main ones to watch. The others aren't too impressive right now, but still something to watch out for, especially disturbance 1 that can't be disregarded quite yet. So now going on to our satellite imagery of Super Typhoon Yagi. Super Typhoon, so it's a very strong typhoon, barreling, as you can see, basically just due west, okay, slightly jogging a little north. But this is gonna have impacts on Hainan areas of Vietnam coastlines and China as it continues trekking in this general direction. Major impacts, okay? There's going to be lots of heavy rain, lots of winds, and I mean, you can see that with this impressive blow up of convection, especially on the southern side and especially on the outer bands. Impressive thunderstorm activity and a very dangerous storm. So please, please watch out. It has a very solid eye, healthy outflow, mainly southern loaded, but it is strengthening and around actually kind of reaching peak strength. Thankfully, it will be weakening soon, but how much it weakens is still a question as it treks dangerously into land masses over there in Asia. So track-wise, here it is. So yes, actually at its peak right now, 130 knots. Thankfully, it will start to weaken. Okay, right now it's around a Cat 4 in this in scale, Category 4 hurricane, a major hurricane. However, thankfully, it's gonna weaken 115, 180, 55, and eventually 20. So not just weaken, it's gonna significantly weaken. By the time it makes landfall, it will be probably Category 3 major hurricane still, so still very dangerous. And as it passes 100 knots, still around a Category 3, and then landfalling as a Cat 2 into areas of Vietnam and China. So, still expect major hurricane impacts if you're in this general area. Here, let's draw some good stuff. So, if you're in this circle, I would say, here, let me redo this. I'd say overall, if you're in here, be prepared for the worst. Be prepared for major hurricane impacts. And then if you're over here, in the blue, be prepared for at least hurricane impacts. And then over here in the black, just regular tropical system, slight tropical cyclone impacts. So, but something to watch out. You can keep taking a look at this in the future. On the website, it's called Tropical Tidbits. Alright, so last thing I want to talk about, or not last thing, but nationwide forecast is the temperatures, okay? So right now, we're actually having a cooler blast starting to lighten off in the eastern seaboard. Cool air over here in the north central U.S., heat on the western U.S., and heat in between these two cool air masses, which is actually driving our severe threat for tomorrow. Now, a reinforcing shot of cold air for the eastern U.S., causing possibly record low this weekend before quickly fading by early next week. Now, this is where we settle into our kind of new pattern. Almost a negative PNA, so cooler temperatures over here in the west, cooler temperatures in the southern tier, and heat over here in the northern tier of the U.S. And this persistently stays. This is actually a tropical system noted by the GFS, but ignore that for now. Again, heat over here, cooler temperatures in the south, and a little bit on the western coast. And let's just take this all the way out. You see that continues with heat throughout the rest of September, kind of getting into mid-late September, and then we finally see a cool shot trying to start entering the north central U.S. So enjoy these cooler temperatures for now. For, I'd say, at least into early next week. We'll see if it lasts later on. But take advantage of the pleasant temperatures over here in the northern U.S. For this weekend. Now, here, the temperature outlook is actually reflected by the National Weather Service, the Climate Prediction Center. Well above average temperatures over here in the north central U.S. and below average temperatures down here in the southeast. And the precipitation as well, drier, warmer air overall for the northern tier, cooler, wetter air, or moist air, wetter conditions for the southern tier, and then in the Pacific Northwest being cool and wet as well. And then last interesting thing I want to talk about. So, this is the polar vortex. Credits to Mark Margavage. You have his details over here and whatnot. I got it right off of his Twitter page. Very good, nice graph he showed of us. So, it's actually, our polar vortex is trending weaker than average. Now, that doesn't mean anything quite yet, but it is pretty big, okay? Current record minimum is September 2016 at 5.86 miles per second, okay? Meters per second. And so that's forecast suggesting for the chance of the weakest September polar vortex on record. So, hasn't verified yet, but it's something to watch, and a weaker polar vortex tends to bring cooler temperatures for the lower 48. So, here, let's do a little rough draft of the lower 48, Florida, whatnot. Okay, so polar vortex would become dislodged and almost bring cooler temperatures for much of the Northeast and Midwest. And that could bring early opportunities for cooler shots and record lows. And eventually, if this continues later into fall and winter, early snow chances and a very abrupt start to winter could be possible. So, just something to keep interested in. And then analogs right here kind of represent at cooler temperatures along the whole eastern seaboard almost and into the Midwest. Heat for much of the central U.S. and cooler temperatures back in the West. So it's almost like a pattern, like a trough, sharp ridge, and then a trough again, okay? Something kind of like that, which we're getting cooler air over here, warmer air up into here, and cooler air once again over here in the West. So, try to go fast, try to keep it power packed. Sorry for all the stutters, but gonna keep getting better with my speech as we continue. But yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you have a great rest of the day. See you guys right tomorrow, back with another forecast.